Hello, I'm Mitra Sorrells in the PhocusWire Studio at Phocuswright Europe, and I am joined by Christie Travers-Smith from Google. She is Head of Retail and Travel Partnerships for EMEA. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Great. So I know that you have just completed some research, the expectations of the evolving traveler. Tell me a little bit about that. First of all, kind of the scope and what the research was looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have learned through speaking with the many travel businesses that we work with how important insights are. In 2020, last year, we launched Traveler Insights, which is a free platform which helps travel businesses adapt to real-time demand during the pandemic, and that was really important. We had great feedback on that, but included within that feedback was also a desire to learn more about what that means for travelers and how they're going to behave as we hopefully are now coming out the other side of this really disruptive period. So we decided to partner with Kantar to really understand, what that looks like in this new world and how they can best prepare for it.
Okay, so give me some of the main points that you learned from this then.
So within the research, we did something a little bit different than we usually do when we're doing research. And we looked at not just what travelers were saying. So we spoke to almost 17,000 travelers who've taken a trip since April 2021 to April 2022. And we assessed around about 35 criteria that they were concerned about when they were thinking about their journeys. But what we also did that was really interesting in partnership with Kantar is we did a behavioral analysis as well. So through the Kruskal method, we looked at what they were saying, but then also what they were actually doing.
Okay.
And what is a really interesting aspect of approaching the study that way is we'll often see a gap in between. So the difference between what they're saying and what they're actually doing in practice.
Can you give me an example to make that a little more concrete?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we've just had a period of increased volatility globally. So besides the pandemic, we've also been through a period of political upheaval in many ways, social, climate. I mean, it's been a really interesting few years, and that's been at a rate of frequency that far exceeds the years preceding the pandemic. So what we're actually seeing is that before the pandemic, travelers' correlation between their attitudes and behaviors was pretty aligned. So I'm going to do this, I will do this. But what we've seen actually as a result of that period of instability is that the gap is quite different. Actually, 30%, more than 30% were saying that they're planning on spending more on their next travel journey. And more than 30% were also saying they're planning on that trip of a lifetime coming up. And they said they were prepared to spend more on that. When we looked at the behavioral analysis, we actually saw that, yes, they are planning on spending more. In fact, even more than they were thinking. Okay. But there are a few critical things that were key to that. So one of the major behavioral drivers on that was value for money.
Okay.
So they're prepared to pay a premium. 1 in 4 actually have paid a premium for things like increased hygiene methods, things like flexibility on cancellations, as you can understand.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing that being a really critical behavior driver. And then also price transparency. So a breakdown of exactly what they're paying for, what they're going to get for it. We're seeing them spend a lot more time planning their journey. And so it's really important that they understand that they're getting really good value in return. But the reward for that for businesses is, yes, they are planning on spending more on their journeys. So there is a lot of opportunity there for travel businesses to realize additional uplift. Another interesting insight is that ease of booking. So that ease of the traveler journey. We're seeing that 40% of travelers are saying they're spending longer preparing for their journeys than they were pre-pandemic. So that includes everything from dreaming and planning and researching right through to sharing photos, reminiscing, writing reviews. That whole process is taking a lot longer than it did once before. So 70% of that process is happening before they leave on the trip.
Oh, wow.
So if you're imagining a week-long journey, 3 weeks you're preparing for that week-long journey. So there are opportunities within there, and we're seeing through the behavioral analysis that elements that ease that workload for travelers is really, really critical. So things like intuitive booking processes and inspirational content. Travelers are saying that in that list of 35 criteria that we assessed, those elements fall in the middle. But actually, when we look at the behavioral analysis, we see that they're in the top 10.
Okay.
And actually, that intuitive, easy booking system is number one. And in the UK, if we look at inspirational content, for example, that falls in the top 3.
Oh.
Even though they're saying it ranks in the middle. So it's really important for travel businesses to think about how those elements of their service are reflecting that actual behavioral demand.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, that certainly all just rings very true to me as I just think about my own personal experience
Absolutely.
with travel. I feel like a lot of it comes down to that reassurance piece.
Absolutely.
In these times of uncertainty.
Yeah, for sure.
You touched on the cancellation and the content and all of that. So
yeah, and travelers haven't had a chance to travel as much as they would have liked to in the last few years. So their tolerance for risk and taking a chance is just much lower than it once was. And I understand that personally as well. So.
Yeah, and I guess now the question is going to be, I mean, do you have plans at some point to redo this then to see, is this changing? How is this evolving over time?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the beauty of the critical method that we used is that actually it's a future-looking research method. So this is a predictor of future behaviors. So in that way, many elements of the research will be evergreen.
Okay.
But clearly, as hopefully we come out of this period of instability in the world, we can dream. There will be a need for us to look at again how that's influencing behaviors, and we'll be happy to do that. Looking forward to the results.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, wonderful. Well, Christie Travers-Smith from Google, thank you so much for joining us and sharing some of that research.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you.